Alrighty, so for week 10 U code checkpoints, we are going to complete the CRUD operations. So in week 8, we actually did the infrastructure, the wiring up of the click buttons so that we knew that they had corrected event listeners and they were being passed into the module for render so that when we clicked on it, we could also have identified the class and the function, that it was a function, and then called that function. So not a big surprise what we're doing for 10. Before we look at the instructions, let me just show you the expected output. So I came in today. First thing I do is I clear my local storage. And this may happen to you as well because, at this point, and this is part of what could throw students off on this one, is if you have named things differently as far as modules, functions, variables, right? Then this can trip you up a little bit. It actually did me. So I ended up having to kind of backtrack and go, oh, okay, I see what I did there. And that's honestly part of what this is intended to do, is really help you think through the code, but also to see where, the functionality that you're writing, implementing works, has you understand it, okay, which is really the whole U code task. Okay, so I have the form up. I went ahead and updated it. I placed the order, then I get this, and then at this point, if I hit edit, it's going to repopulate all the fields and allow me to maybe change it to medium. Cool. And so what I see here is that it's working because first on the edit, it didn't duplicate the role. Okay, and then if I hit delete, then it just clears it. Now we could also write the logic that actually doesn't show the heading on the table and actually has some kind of message. That's what we would do on the carbon footprint. But I think this is part of why I didn't do an AI review or a code checkpoint this week, was that, this takes a bit of just reasoning about. So let's take a look at the instructions. So we're going to make the buttons actually work. We will implement it in 3 phases. Test each phase before moving on to the next. I purposely work on having these be this way because you want a win. You want to make sure, and this is just generally my recommendation and in coding good practices, that you do something, you make sure it works, you move on to the next thing. The more you code, the more challenging sometimes finding bugs can be. So now create your new folder in your public repo, copy your week 8 into week 10, update your index to be CRUD complete, do your commit. And then for the delete, it's pretty straightforward at that point. You're really just inside that handle delete inside the app.js. You're just calling the splice, right? But you have to indicate based on what's being passed in there. Again, I'm not giving you that detail. You can refer back to how we did it in the carbon footprint, and then you save the updated array to storage, and then you re-render. Make sure you're passing in those handlers of on delete the key, and then the value is the function. Remember, we don't actually call it as a function here because it's called at a later time, okay? So you refresh, do you hit delete, does it go away? If so, complete. And then we're going to repopulate, right? So the idea of when we hit the edit, that it actually, now it's harder to see in that one, so let's do it this way, hit edit, and we want to make sure all these buttons get repopulated. Now this one kind of threw me a little bit because of the way we referenced and repopulated the radio buttons. So I gave some hints in here about the radio buttons and the size and how I did it. As long as it works, most importantly for you, that's the most important, but hopefully these hints will help you. But yeah, you have to set up that hidden value. You'll update your handle. To include the find. So you actually have to find the entry, right? Yeah, inside of there, populate the visible inputs, handle the radio, handle the checkbox. Okay. So it's similar to the radios that checkbox uses .checked. Okay. And then populate the hidden fields so that it has the order ID. These, except for the way we're referencing here, this is all stuff we've done. So at this point, hit edit, right? actually scroll up on the form. So in this case, we don't really have to scroll up. We did that nice scroll up on the carbon footprint because the form was so long, right? But you do want to make sure everything actually got repopulated. That's why I just showed that concept of making sure that edit does repopulate so that when you hit edit the next time, everything comes into the form so that you can then update. Now, I didn't even change this, right? So at this point, we could have, because I do think that's a nice UI feature to have. So now at this point, what we want to do is actually handle the changes in the handle order submission, right? So we want to get right. So this is normal stuff we've done, which is to get the order data. You may have called it something else, total, like we normally do, and then get the hidden field, right? And then this is where you write the logic, right? So if the ID exists, right, then we're going to update the object, the specific object by merging, right, everything together through the spread. Else we're going to complete a new object. We're going to set up a new object here and push it, okay? And then save it to local storage, re-render. Okay, again, keeping that render. Now, in this case, we actually had already, and this is what I'm referring to here, where we passed to make sure we pass these. So that render in the handler should already be there. So that should be, I just said, when I saw it here, I thought, okay, just a good reminder. Right. So then critical cleanup, clear that ID off that order ID. Now, in this case, here's where some of us did a form, a clear form, and you could actually call that clear form. And what that means is when you actually place an order, you actually want that form to be reset. Now, we've actually done this through buttons, listening for the buttons. You can also just call a reset. And this is where some of us did it a little differently. So based on how you handled it, you'll have to figure that out. And so here's your checkpoint for the last one, right? Did it handle it? Did it update? Did it come back? And so then you do complete. All right, so this is just a coverage of your U code for week 10. See you later.